Third story on the countdown, the nexus of politics and terror again. After several days in which he had kept his hysteria in check and conservative bastions like the Cato Institute and the Washington Times insisted he had the credibility on this issue of Chicken Little. President Bush lost it anew this afternoon on his flight home from Liberia. It's the so-called Protect America Act, which has not yet been renewed by the House because the president first refused a temporary extension of it and then refused a permanent extension of it that does not include immunity for the telecom companies who helped him break the law. If we do not give liability protection to those who are helping us, they won't help us, he said today. And if they don't help us, there will be no program. And if there's no program, America is more vulnerable. Mr. Bush then presented two comparatively new red herrings. These companies are going to be subject to multi-billion-dollar lawsuits by trial lawyers, plaintiffs' attorneys, and it's going to drive them away from helping us unless they get liability protection, prospective and retroactive. So it's official. This is not just about laws they broke in the past. It's about laws they will break in the future. Plus the suits against the telecoms. They're mostly by outfits like the ACLU with lawyers volunteering their time so you can drop that money-making crap too. As preface, we remind you again that coincidences can happen, that the logical fallacy insists that just because event A occurs and then event B occurs, that does not automatically mean that event A caused event B. But neither does it say the opposite. I can assure you Al-Qaeda in their planning isn't thinking about politics, Mr. Bush said last week. They're thinking about hurting American people again. As vital an issue of what is the Bush administration thinking in its planning. The first 13 juxtapositions that constitute the nexus of politics and terror. Please judge for yourself.
Number 1, May 18, 2002. The first details of the president's daily briefing of August 6, 2001 are revealed, including its title, Bin Laden Determined to Strike in U.S. The same day, another memo is discovered revealing the FBI knew of men with links to Al-Qaeda training at an Arizona flight school. The memo was never acted upon. Questions about 9/11 intelligence failures are swirling. May 20th, 2002.
The terror warnings from the highest levels of the federal government tonight are just
2 days later.
Warnings.
FBI Director Mueller declares that another terrorist attack is inevitable.
Tonight, there are even more warnings
The
of
next day,
possible
the Department of Homeland Security issues warnings of attacks against railroads nationwide and against New York City landmarks like the Brooklyn Bridge and the Statue of Liberty.
That agility that
Number 2,
Dr. Mueller was
Thursday, June 6, 2002.
I never really anticipated this kind of impact.
Colleen Rowley, the FBI agent who tried to alert her superiors to the specialized flight training taken by Zacarias Moussaoui, whose information suggests the government missed a chance to break up the 9/11 plot, testifies before Congress. Senate Intelligence Committee Chair Graham says Rowley's testimony has inspired similar pre-9/11 whistleblowers. Monday, June 10th, 2002, 4 days later.
We have disrupted an unfolding terrorist plot.
Speaking from Russia, Attorney General John Ashcroft reveals that an American named Jose Padilla is under arrest, accused of plotting a radiation bomb attack in this country. In fact, Padilla had by this time already been detained for more than 1 month. Number 3, February 5th, 2003. Secretary of State Powell tells the United Nations Security Council of Iraq's concealment of weapons, including 18 mobile biological weapons laboratories, justifying a UN or U.S. first strike. Many in the UN are doubtful. Months later, much of the information proves untrue. February 7th, 2003. 2 days later, as anti-war demonstrations continue to take place around the globe,
take some time to prepare for an emergency.
Homeland Security Secretary Ridge cites credible threats by Al-Qaeda and raises the terror alert level to orange. 3 days after that, Fire Administrator David Paulison, who would become the acting head of FEMA after the Hurricane Katrina disaster, advises Americans to stock up on plastic sheeting and duct tape to protect themselves against radiological or biological attack. Number 4, July 23rd, 2003. The White House admits that the CIA, months before the president's State of the Union address, expressed strong doubts about the claim that Iraq had attempted to buy uranium from Niger. On the 24th, the congressional report on the 9/11 attacks is issued. It criticizes government at all levels. It reveals an FBI informant had been living with two of the future hijackers. It concludes that Iraq had no link to al-Qaeda. 28 pages of the report are redacted. On the 26th, American troops are accused of beating Iraqi prisoners. July 29th, 2003. 3 days later, amid all of the negative headlines,
Word of a possible new al-Qaeda attack.
Homeland Security issues warnings of further terrorist attempts to use airplanes for suicide attacks. Number 5, December 17th, 2003. 9/11 Commission co-chair Thomas Kean says the attacks were preventable. The next day, a federal appeals court says the government cannot detain suspected radiation bomber Jose Padilla indefinitely without charges, and the chief U.S. weapons inspector in Iraq, Dr. David Kay, who has previously announced he has found no weapons of mass destruction there, announces he will resign his post. December 21st, 2003. 4 days later, the Sunday before Christmas.
Today, the United States government raised the national threat level.
Homeland Security again raises the threat level to orange, claiming credible intelligence of further plots to crash airliners into U.S. cities. Subsequently, 6 international flights into this country are canceled after some passenger names purportedly produced matches on government no-fly lists. The French later identify those matched names. One belongs to an insurance salesman from Wales, another to an elderly Chinese woman, a third to a 5-year-old boy. Number 6. March 30th, 2004, the new chief weapons inspector in Iraq, Charles Dulfer, tells Congress, "We have still not found any WMD in that country." And after weeks of having refused to appear before the 9/11 Commission, Condoleezza Rice relents and agrees to testify. On the 31st, 4 Blackwater USA contractors working in Iraq are murdered, their mutilated bodies dragged through the streets and left on public display in Fallujah. The role of civilian contractors in Iraq is now widely questioned. April 2nd, 2004.
The FBI has issued a new warning tonight to
Homeland Security issues a bulletin warning that terrorists may try to blow up buses and trains using fertilizer and fuel bombs, like the one detonated in Oklahoma City. Bombs stuffed into satchels or duffel bags. Number 7, May 16th, 2004. Secretary of State Powell appears on Meet the Press. Moderator Tim Russert closes by asking him about the enormous personal credibility Powell had placed before the UN in laying out a case against Saddam Hussein. An aide to Powell interrupts the question, saying the interview is over.
I think that was one of your staff, Mr. Secretary. I don't think that's appropriate. Emily, get out of the way.
Powell finishes his answer, admitting that much of the information he had been given about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq was
inaccurate and wrong, and in some cases deliberately misleading.
On the 21st, new photos showing mistreatment of Iraqi prisoners at Abu Ghraib prison are released. On the 24th, Associated Press video from Iraq confirms U.S. forces mistakenly bombed a wedding party, killing more than 40. Wednesday, May 26, 2004. 2 days later.
Good afternoon.
Attorney General Ashcroft
Today,
and FBI Director Mueller warned that intelligence from multiple sources
indicates al-Qaeda's specific intention to hit the United States hard.
And that 90% of the arrangements for an attack on the United States were complete. The color-coded warning system is not raised. The Homeland Security Secretary, Tom Ridge, does not attend the announcement. Number 8, July 6, 2004. Democratic presidential candidate John Kerry selects Senator John Edwards as his vice presidential running mate, producing a small bump in the election opinion polls and producing a huge swing in media attention towards the Democratic campaign. July 8th, 2004. 2 days later,
Credible reporting now indicates that al-Qaeda is moving forward with its plans to carry out a large-scale attack in the United States.
Homeland Secretary Ridge warns of information about al-Qaeda attacks during the summer or autumn. 4 days after that, the head of the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, DeForest B. Soares Jr., confirms he has written to Ridge about the prospect of postponing the upcoming presidential election in the event it is interrupted by terrorist acts. Number 9, July 29, 2004. At their party convention in Boston, the Democrats formally nominate John Kerry as their candidate for president. As in the wake of any convention, the Democrats now dominate the media attention over the subsequent weekend. August 1st, 2004. Monday morning, 3 days later.
It is as reliable group of sources that we've ever seen before.
The Department of Homeland Security raises the alert status for financial centers in New York, New Jersey, and Washington to orange. The evidence supporting the warning, reconnaissance data left in a home in Iraq, later proves to be roughly 4 years old and largely out of date. Number 10, October 6, 2005, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. The president addresses the National Endowment for Democracy, once again emphasizing the importance of the war on terror and insisting his government has broken up at least 10 terrorist plots since 9/11. At 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 hours after the president's speech has begun, the Associated Press reports that Karl Rove will testify again to the CIA leak grand jury, and that Special Prosecutor Fitzgerald has told Rove he cannot guarantee that he will not be indicted.